Hello and welcome to the latest episode of the Boardmasters with me, Chris Mullins, peering through these two amazing boxes. My latest arrival from Awaken Realms, sorry. I'm so excited I'm muddling myself up already. And that is the Great Wall. The one time probably in my history and short time in the hobby where I showed a bit of self-restraint, only went for the base game, and spent much of the last year absolutely kicking myself about the decision because, well, certainly the miniatures and the expansions look absolutely stunning, but I will console myself with the fact that based on the early impressions and the art that I've seen for this, these may well be some of my favourite miniatures ever because they look absolutely gorgeous. I will open the stretch goals box. I just wanted to move it out of the way so I had a bit of space to appreciate the core game. If I can get this box off. This will probably be the third and final unboxing of this week. I do have a few more games due to arrive, which will hopefully feature in the coming weeks, but here we go. I need a bigger seat. I need a booster. So we've got the rule book. Great Wall is a fantasy board game inspired by the history of the Great Wall of China, Song Dynasty, and Genghis Khan's conquests. Most of the characters, events, and military inventions are historical, but some were slightly modified to better suit the game's theme. The rules presented in the following pages apply for 3 or 4 player game. The changes for the 2 player game and solo mode are detailed at the end. Okay, so you need to familiarise yourself with the standard rules first. There's a lot of text on there, not a lot of pictures. Hopefully it flows quite nicely. I mean, it's a shorter rule book than I maybe anticipated, but that is probably largely because it is almost entirely text throughout that rule book. There we go. And our first glimpse at some very attractive art. I'm not sure where in the game this bit relates to. Okay, I think these might just be the player boards so that you fold them up to keep your units hidden from your opponents or whatnot, because although it is a co-op, there is a semi-co-op aspect to it. It makes sense then that they've got them for each of the factions in the game. And we've got this big, beautiful board coming up. I have to stand up for this. There is a lot going on this board, but the artwork is absolutely gorgeous on there. Love the sort of water effect, watercolor effect, sorry. It is absolutely stunning. Probably one of my most attractive boards, certainly so far. How do we get into here? There's a clasp. Oh, I just had a glance at the minis and they are absolutely stunning. They really are. But let's have a look at these tokens first. So we've got the wall section. So obviously a big part of this game is getting the actual wall built up layer by layer. I know there's been some controversy in a way with that because people were struggling to get them to fit inside the box once they're made up. And obviously with cardboard such as these that push together, you don't really want to be assembling and disassembling them too often because they will get damaged and wear out that way. I did see some solutions where people got them where they moved sort of the stretch goal stuff into the core box and then could just use the stretch goal box for the towers, which is probably what I will try and do initially. So we've got some spear barricades. I guess these are like currency or points. Are these surrender flags on the back of units? Interesting. And it all looks very thematic. It connects nicely. You can tell that it's all part of the same game. Okay, let's dive into these. They are absolutely gorgeous. I mean, I usually can't stand coloured minis. I can't remember which game it was. Someone Peterson, I think it's Apocalypse something, that was on Kickstarter October, November time last year. Looked absolutely stunning. Big tower defense game. Loved the look of the gameplay, but they had these giant, great purple and bright red minis, and they were just revolting. I hated how they looked. But these, I mean, the detail on these, Awaken Realms really do produce some absolutely exquisite miniatures. And just imagining these all over the board. Oh, it's like two covers on that one. Did I put one? Oh, I must have put the top one straight back in there. Confusing myself, but we got the red and blue ones as well. Obviously, you can see there's lots of differences between like the types of weapons they're carrying, just the basic structure. Like these have got scholars and just lots of differences between the units and the factions. So they're not just copy and paste minis with a different color. They actually look different. They're different models. They've got different weaponry. I'm so happy I got the minis version. The meeples, actually, I'm not a meeples fan at all generally, but the meeples in the Grey Wall do look absolutely gorgeous. I mean, I think there was some issue with like the horses or the cavalry, and particularly the ones that had the long weapons, like these green ones. The stickers didn't seem to cover the whole weapon, which just seemed really odd. It just had the outline of the rider. What other goodies have we got in this box? Oh, I've buried my knife now. Let's have a look at some of these cards. Wow, there is certainly... You can't criticise Awaken Realms for the production quality of their games at all. This is absolutely top drawer. Morticians, wardens. So I guess these represent units of the different armies. So stonemason, you're building your walls. And they all have different abilities, and armoured horsemen. And what have we got here? Fall of the Academy. I'm guessing these are the different events, and that they seem to sort of trigger problems and things for you to deal with. I really hope the factions play differently as well. I mean, they look different in terms of the minis. The cards that were there certainly looked like they were unit specific. So I'm hoping that they really do all feel different. And I mean, obviously the risk with that is that then they've got to be balanced. But I trust that they are well balanced here. And hopefully these cards are different. Betrayal, Economy. I mean, you may upgrade, won't move up to 3. I mean, the text does look similar across all of them, which is a little disappointing. I was hoping they would all be but that's only from first glance. I may be wrong, but I think they are basically the same. Just some cool little faction tokens. lots of bits and pieces. They look delicious. What do they look like? Look almost like little gummy sweets. They look like raindrops, but red, so I'm not sure what they stand for. They feel very cool. And I guess we've got our wood resources and our stone, which we're going to be using to build the wall, presumably. A few more cards. A bunch more leaders. Hopefully they are able to change it up a bit. There we go. Okay, so yeah, there's certainly the abilities are different, so that's reassuring. There's lots of different ones as well. Generals, and so that does fill me with hope that they are going to feel really different to control. I mean, these all look much the same. Yeah, so those bits are all the same, but at least the generals and the commanders, by the look of it, do play really differently. Because the last thing you want is them to go to all this hassle, making different factions and whatnot, and then have them all play the same. Because that would be a bit disappointing. I think you need that variety to keep it fresh. And then just a few more little cards. Look almost like penalties. And now like special bonuses. Like rare relics perhaps. But that's everything that's in the core box. So I'll just get this sort of tidied away a bit and then we can look at the stretch goals. Okay, welcome back. So I've just left the board out because, as I said, I think it's absolutely stunning to look at. But let's dive into the stretch goals. So we're going to get even more minis because there's the 5th player expansion in here. And we've got Genghis Khan and we've got some other bits. So a few more scenarios, I think. Not sure what the rats bring. We shall find out eventually. Again, I just really love well, I said about the artwork and everything so far, obviously. But I really wanted a game set in the Orient as such. I love the artwork. I love the theme of it. So we've got the Genghis Khan expansion. Ancient Chronicles expansion introduced scenarios, which are sets of components altering the standard game, adding a bit more replayability and variety to everything. Got the 5th player. It's unlikely I'll probably ever get to 5 players, but you never know. And the Rat expansion is a mini add-on which may be added to any game mode. Its purpose is to bring wealth to the brave generals facing the invasion of the Horde. Okay. Fair enough. Don't really expect wealth to be associated with a rat necessarily, but and this is obviously the 5th player board that we saw from the core box. Obviously very handy having all the information on there in terms of what we can do. And then we have these gorgeous extra minis, the Mongols. Oh, they look so pretty. Have a close up of that. And Genghis Khan himself. That is a spectacular miniature. Here's the rat, quilling hand. Oh, on his scroll of parchment, ready to make people rich. And then we've got more cards and more tokens and more relics. So more of the same stuff really. But man, the minis in this game look so breathtakingly beautiful. But I'm not going to go into too much detail because it's basically more of what we saw in the core box. But the third and final part of this package is the surprise box, related to something called gauging. Now, obviously, in the last Awaken Realms opening, we had sort of the sneak announcement, as it was at the time, for ISS Vanguard. So it doesn't take too much to guess that this is Awaken Realms' next new project, other than, like, for example, they got Lords of Ragnarok coming next month, which is a sequel to Lords of Hellas, which I'm going to struggle to resist the two of those because, you know, anything by Awaken Realms appeals to me, and I unfortunately missed Lords of Hellas first time round. So let's have a look. What have we got in here? I am Gaijin, an outsider in my own country. The Ascent Corporation was overtaken by its own artificial intelligence and now controls the world, building a future with no place for ones like me, for humans. Okay, Ascent's goal is to bring forth a new Eden to restore balance to the ailing planet, preserve its wildlife, and create a place where technology and nature will live in harmony. We are not a part of this picture. Humans and their mistakes are to be swept clean, like a sketch scorned by the illustrator. We do not go silently. Okay. Well, as to be expected with this, really. Oh, the artwork is absolutely beautiful, if a bit morbid, seeing people being hung from the bridge. Is a cyberpunk adventure board game with a post-apocalyptic vibe. I mean, just from the artwork, you obviously get cyberpunk from it. But yeah, some of this artwork is really, really beautiful and really cool. I'm not generally into cyberpunk sort of vibes, although it's cyberpunk in the Orient by the look of it, which is a bit more interesting because that's a setting that I haven't really seen before. But it's definitely one I'm going to be excited to keep an eye on. That artwork's stunning, that dragon. Okay. It's like cyberpunk, futuristic, apocalyptic samurais going on, which is definitely a fun vibe. I am intrigued, definitely intrigued, as I would be by anything with from Awaken Realms, but even more so with the theme and the art style there. So that is everything in the core of the Great Wall. Sadly, I don't have the expansions because I'm an idiot. And that's what happens when you use self-restraint. Don't do it. But yeah, that is the Great Wall. So thank you for watching. Look after yourself, stay safe, and have a good one. Bye-bye now.